You roll out of bed tomorrow morning, drive to the grocery store you've gone to 1,000 times, and the shelves are bare. Not picked over. Bare. And here's the kicker. You got maybe 24 hours of warning that it was coming. And you spent that time doing nothing because you figured it'd never actually happen. Let me be blunt with you. This isn't some fantasy cooked up by a guy in a bunker wearing a tinfoil hat. It isn't a scene from a movie. It's something that has already happened, more than once, in places that looked exactly like wherever you're sitting right now. The shelves emptied. The pumps ran dry. The pharmacies put up out-of-stock signs on the most basic stuff imaginable. You've probably seen the footage yourself. Gas stations with cars backed up around the block. Grocery aisles stripped down to the metal, within hours of a storm warning crawling across the bottom of the news. Supply chains that every expert swore up and down were rock solid, just snapping like a dry twig the second real pressure hit them. And every single time it happens, the same pattern shows up. There are two groups of people. There are no exceptions to this. Group 1 is standing in line, stressed out of their minds, refreshing their phones, praying that there's a single bottle of fever reducer left when they finally shuffle to the front. They didn't do anything wrong, exactly. They just waited. They assumed someone else would handle it, or that it wouldn't get that bad, or that they'd deal with it when the time came. And now the time has come, and they're at the back of a very long line. Group 2 is at home, feet up, maybe making a sandwich, watching the chaos unfold on the news with the mild detachment of someone who already took care of business weeks ago. Not smug, exactly. Just calm, just done. They're not scrambling, because there's nothing left to scramble for. Now here's the part that's going to surprise some of you. The thing separating those two groups almost never comes down to money. It rarely comes down to some special survival training or a wilderness skill set or a doomsday budget. I've seen broke people sail through disruptions without breaking a sweat, and I've seen folks with plenty of cash get caught flat-footed and desperate. What actually separates them is one thing: timing. That's it. Moving before the herd wakes up. Acting while the acting is still cheap and easy and boring, instead of waiting until it's expensive and frantic and too late. The supplies are the easy part. They're sitting on shelves right now, fully stocked, cheap, waiting for you. The hard part is the discipline to grab them on an ordinary Tuesday when nothing is wrong and there's no pressure forcing your hand. That's the whole secret. And nobody wants to hear it because it's not dramatic. It's just consistent. So that's exactly what we're doing in this video. I'm going to walk you through a whole pile of supplies, way more than a dozen, that quietly start vanishing the moment any kind of crisis lands. I'll tell you why each one actually matters, not in some vague hand-wavy way, but in plain terms. I'll tell you how to store it so it doesn't go bad on you. And I'll show you how to build real resilience into your household long before you ever have to find out the hard way that you don't have it. No fear-mongering here. I'm not interested in scaring you into a panic. I'm not selling you a bunker or a year's supply of freeze-dried slop at a markup. No extremism, no doomsday cult energy, just practical, no-nonsense steps you can start taking this week, even if your budget is tight and your space is small. I live in a normal home, I have normal bills, and everything I'm about to describe fits into a normal life. That's the entire philosophy here. Welcome to Essential Pantry. This is your home for real, actionable preparedness that fits into an actual normal life, not the life of someone who quit their job to dig a trench in the backyard. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, do me a favor and hit subscribe, and smack that like button while you're at it. I know everybody says it, but it genuinely moves the needle on getting this stuff in front of more people who need it. Alright, let's get into it. Fuel and food. Where the pain hits first, let's start where almost every crisis lands its first punch. Your fuel and your food. These two go first, they go fast, and the people who didn't think ahead feel it immediately. Think back to the last time a serious storm warning rolled into your area, or the last time gas prices jumped because of something blowing up, sometimes literally on the other side of the planet. What happened? Within hours, sometimes within actual minutes, the gas stations had lines, and if you hadn't already filled up, you were stuck in that line, white-knuckling the wheel, doing the math on whether the pump would run dry before your turn came. Here's something most people genuinely don't know about gasoline. It goes bad. And it goes bad a lot faster than you'd ever guess. We're not talking years here. Untreated gas starts breaking down within a few weeks. It gets gummy. It oxidizes. The chemistry of the stuff literally changes, and it'll gum up and damage an engine. Especially the small engines in generators, and lawn equipment, and pumps. Which, and this is the cruel part, are exactly the tools you'd be leaning on hardest during a power outage. So you've got this situation where the fuel you stored to save yourself is quietly turning into garbage that'll wreck the equipment you stored it for. Wonderful. The fix, though, is almost insultingly simple and cheap. Fuel stabilizer. A bottle of it costs a few bucks at any hardware store. You pour the right amount into your stored gas, and it stretches that fuel's usable life out to around 3 years instead of a few weeks. That's the whole trick. That's it. Store your stabilized gas in proper approved containers. Not random milk jugs, please. I'm begging you. Somewhere cool and well ventilated. Away from anything that throws a spark. Rotate it once a year by pouring the old stuff into your car and refilling with fresh. Keep at least 2 cans on hand. One for the vehicle, one for the generator. That tiny, cheap 10-minute habit is the entire difference between being the person calmly running their generator and being the person stranded in a fuel line watching the pump shut off 2 cars ahead of them. And while we're on the subject of your vehicle, keep your gas tank above half full as a standing habit. This costs you nothing. It's just a decision. A car with a half tank is a car that can evacuate, can run a heater, can charge your phone, can be a warm shelter on wheels. A car running on fumes when the stations are all dry is just a very expensive paperweight in your driveway. Half a tank, always. Make it a rule. Now, food. And when we're talking emergency food storage, I'll just say it plainly, nothing on earth beats white rice. Nothing comes close. And I mean white rice specifically, not brown. I know. Brown rice is the healthier one. It's got the bran, it's got the fiber. Your nutritionist loves it. But for storage, it's a trap. That bran layer is full of natural oils, and those oils go rancid within months. You'll open your survival bucket of brown rice expecting a meal, and get a face full of something that smells like old paint. Hard pass. White rice, on the other hand, sealed up properly in an oxygen-free container, stays perfectly edible for up to 30 years. Read that again. 30 years. That is not a typo, and it is not an exaggeration. You could seal a bucket of white rice today, and your kid could open it when they're middle-aged, and cook a perfectly fine pot of it. And beyond that frankly ridiculous shelf life, rice is one of the most calorie-dense, versatile, dirt-cheap staples that exists anywhere on the planet. One dry cup gets you around 600 calories. It pairs with literally anything. Canned meat, canned vegetables, broth, beans, a pinch of whatever spices you've got. It takes a tiny amount of real ingredients and stretches it into a full, filling meal. That's exactly what you want when supplies are tight. If you're starting your food storage completely from scratch and you have no idea where to even begin, begin here. Get a few sealed buckets of white rice squared away, and you've already laid the single most important brick in the whole foundation. Everything else builds on top of that. Now let me hammer the rice's best friend, because the original list skips it, and that's a crime: dried beans. Rice and beans together form what's called a complete protein, meaning the two of them eaten as a pair give your body the full set of amino acids it needs to actually function. Rice on its own is fuel. Rice and beans is a meal that keeps a human alive and working long term. Dried beans store for years when kept dry and sealed. They're absurdly cheap, and a single bag is a stack of dinners. Black beans, pinto, lentils, chickpeas, get a mix. Lentils especially are worth a mention because they cook fast and don't need the long soak the bigger beans do, which matters when fuel for cooking is precious. Rice and beans have carried entire civilizations. They'll carry your household. Speaking of carrying you, let's talk about protein from cans. This is the category people overlook the hardest, right up until the moment it's gone. And here's a fact you should sit with. In a real crisis, protein clears off the shelves faster than almost anything else. People feel that instinct before they can even explain it. Canned tuna, canned chicken, salmon, sardines, canned ham. These are your shelf-stable, ready-to-eat, open it, and it's dinner solutions. No refrigeration. No cooking required if it comes to that. They hand you the protein and the healthy fats and the real nutrition your body desperately needs when it's under physical and mental stress, which it absolutely will be during any genuine emergency. And don't make the rookie mistake of thinking you can just live on rice and crackers. Trying to survive on carbohydrates alone is a slow-motion disaster. It eats away at your muscle. It tanks your immune system right when you need it most. It wrecks your focus and your mood in ways you'll start feeling within days, not weeks. Your brain runs worse, your body runs worse, and you make worse decisions in a situation where good decisions matter. When you build out your canned protein stash, here's my one big piece of advice. Prioritize variety. Different proteins, different flavors, different brands. And I know that sounds like a minor detail. It isn't. There's a thing called food fatigue, the grinding, soul-crushing monotony of eating the exact same thing meal after meal after meal. It's a real, documented psychological stressor during emergencies. People genuinely lose their appetite and their morale eating identical food on repeat. Variety isn't a luxury or a nice-to-have. It's a legitimate resilience strategy. Mix it up. Quick break right here. If you've gotten value out of anything so far, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what you've already got stocked at home. It genuinely helps the channel claw its way in front of more people, and I actually read the comments. Now let's keep rolling, because we're not done with food. Now let me hit a few more food categories the original script just blew right past. Because a real pantry isn't only rice and tuna. Oats, rolled oats store for a long time. Cook with just hot water and give you a warm, filling, calorie-dense breakfast that settles a nervous stomach and keeps you going for hours. They're cheap, they're versatile, and a big tub of them is a stack of breakfasts. Pasta. Dried pasta lasts for years, weighs almost nothing for the calories it delivers, and pairs with canned sauce, canned meat, oil, and a little seasoning into a meal that actually feels normal. And normal-feeling food matters more under stress than you'd ever guess. Crackers and hardtack-style biscuits, shelf-stable, ready to eat with zero prep, and a vehicle for peanut butter, honey. Or canned spread when you don't have the fuel or energy to cook. Then there's the comfort and morale tier. And do not roll your eyes at this, because it's real. A stash of hard candy, chocolate, instant cocoa, shelf-stable treats, and the kids' favorite snacks does something for the human spirit during a bad stretch that no amount of plain rice ever will. When you're frightened and exhausted and everything's gone sideways, a small piece of chocolate or a familiar treat is a genuine psychological anchor. It says, in some small way, that things are still okay. Soldiers have known this forever. That's why ration kits have always included candy and gum. Morale is a resource. Stock some of it deliberately. It's cheap insurance against the despair that creeps in during long emergencies. And let me name the king of long-term storage food while we're here. Freeze-dried and dehydrated meals. Yes, they cost more up front. And yes, some of them taste like cardboard's sad cousin. But they last 25 years or more. They're incredibly light. They rehydrate with just hot water. And a single bucket can feed a person for weeks. You don't have to go all in on these, but a few buckets tucked in a closet are a serious backstop for your rice and beans foundation. Think of them as the insurance policy sitting on top of your everyday stored food. One more thing on food storage overall. Practice rotation, the first in, first out rule. The whole point is to eat what you store and store what you eat. Don't build a stockpile of stuff your family hates and then let it rot in a corner. Buy a little extra of the foods you already cook with. Work them through your normal meals and replace them as you go. That way, nothing expires. You stay practiced with your supplies, and your stockpile is just a deeper version of your regular kitchen instead of a museum of food you'll never touch. That's how this becomes a sustainable habit instead of an expensive one-time panic buy that sits in a corner until it's garbage. And rounding out this foundational tier is something almost nobody thinks about until the bottle's empty and they realize how much they relied on it. Cooking oil. Gram for gram, oil is one of the most calorie-dense foods that exists, period. But it's not just about calories. Dietary fat does real work in your body. It helps regulate your temperature. It's what lets you actually absorb the fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K, that you're getting from other foods. It gives you the kind of slow, sustained energy that carbs just can't match during long, physically demanding, stressful days. Oil also makes food taste good and feel satisfying. And don't underestimate that. When your menu has shrunk down to rice and canned fish, the difference between a bland, sad meal and one that actually feels like a meal has a real impact on your mental stamina. Morale is a supply too. And people forget that constantly. Store at least two types: vegetable oil for high-heat cooking, and olive or coconut oil for versatility and a longer shelf life. Coconut oil in particular is worth a shout because it's incredibly stable and lasts a long time. Keep them somewhere cool and dark, away from any heat source, because heat is what turns oil rancid. And here's a pro move. Pay a little attention to global agricultural news. We have watched sunflower oil prices roughly triple almost overnight during regional conflicts that hit major producing countries. When the supply chains for agricultural commodities tighten up, they tighten fast, and they tighten without warning. Getting ahead of that curve is honestly the entire point of this channel. Let me throw in a cluster of pantry items the original list completely ignored, because they're staples that last basically forever and cost almost nothing. Salt, plain, boring, cheap salt. It does not expire in any meaningful way. It makes every other food in your storage taste like something a human wants to eat, and historically people fought literal wars over it. A few pounds costs almost nothing, and it punches way above its weight. Don't skip it. Honey, real honey, never truly goes bad. Archaeologists have pulled edible honey out of ancient tombs thousands of years old. It's pure energy, it has natural antibacterial properties that make it useful on minor wounds in a pinch, and it makes bland survival food bearable. A couple of jars belongs in every pantry. Sugar, same deal, lasts indefinitely if kept dry, gives you quick energy and makes food palatable, and it's a key ingredient if you ever do any preserving. White vinegar, cheap, eternal, and it does double duty as a cooking ingredient and a cleaning and disinfecting agent. Bouillon cubes and dried soup bases, tiny, light, last for years. And they turn a pot of plain rice or water into something that tastes like an actual meal. Powdered milk. Not delicious, I won't lie to you, but it stores for ages, and it's a real source of calcium and protein, especially if you've got kids. Peanut butter, calorie-dense, protein-rich, stores for a long time unopened, and it's comfort food on top of being functional. Coffee and tea, and yes, this counts as preparedness, because caffeine withdrawal during a high-stress emergency is a genuine morale and headache problem you do not want to add to your pile of troubles. Plus, the ritual of a hot cup of something normal does more for human psychology under stress than people give it credit for. None of those items are exciting. That's exactly why they get overlooked. But they're cheap, they last, and together they turn a bland survival stockpile into something you can actually live on for an extended stretch without losing your mind. Alright, checkpoint. If this is useful, do the quick thing, like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment with the one pantry item you didn't have until now. It genuinely helps push this in front of people before they need it. Now let's get into the stuff that turns critical the second the infrastructure starts to wobble. Health, power, and water. When the infrastructure wobbles now, we move into the territory that becomes critical almost the instant the systems we all quietly depend on start failing. Your health, supplies, your power, and your water. This is where things get serious fast, and where being unprepared stops being an inconvenience and starts being genuinely dangerous. Start with medications. The fragility of the pharmaceutical supply chain stopped being a theoretical concern in recent years, when basic everyday medications, fever reducers, antihistamines, plain old cold and flu remedies just straight up vanished from pharmacy shelves across entire countries. Not exotic stuff, the most common items in the store. And the reason it happened is structural, which means it can absolutely happen again. A huge portion of the active pharmaceutical ingredients in even the most ordinary over-the-counter medicines are manufactured overseas, often concentrated in just a few facilities in a few countries. So any hiccup anywhere in that chain, a shipping bottleneck, a trade restriction, a single factory shutdown, a regulatory mess, translates to empty shelves at your local pharmacy a few weeks down the line. You don't even see it coming, because the disruption happened thousands of miles away months earlier. Your personal medication kit should cover the essentials: pain and fever relievers, antihistamines for allergic reactions, which can range from annoying to genuinely life-threatening, cold and flu treatments, anti-diarrheal medication. And don't laugh, because in an emergency where water and sanitation are compromised, that's not a comfort item. That's survival. Since dehydration from that can kill faster than the original problem. And electrolyte powders for rehydrating, because plain water isn't always enough when your body's been hit hard. Store all of it in a clearly labeled, organized kit, right alongside a thermometer and your basic first aid stuff, so it's all in one place when you're stressed and not thinking straight. Check the expiration dates every 6 months. And here's a trick to actually remember. Tie it to the twice-a-year clock change. Clocks change, you check your meds. Easy. And if you or anyone in your house is on prescription medication, this is important. Have a direct, honest conversation with your doctor about keeping a small emergency supply on hand. A lot of physicians will work with you on this when you frame it as sensible preparedness rather than hoarding. Most doctors would much rather you have a buffer than run out completely during a disruption. Just ask. The worst they say is no. And while you're at it, keep a written list of every prescription everyone in your household takes, drug name, dose, and schedule, in your emergency kit. Because if you ever have to evacuate or end up somewhere new, that single piece of paper makes replacing your meds 1,000 times easier. Let me add a few health items the original glossed over. Vitamins, a basic multivitamin, matters more than people think when your fresh food intake drops, and you're living on shelf-stable stuff for weeks. A deficiency creeps up slowly and quietly wrecks your immune system and energy. Cheap insurance. Any reading glasses, contact lens supplies, or spare prescription glasses you depend on. Because being unable to see clearly in a crisis is a safety hazard nobody plans for until they're squinting helplessly. And a small supply of any specialty items your household specifically needs. Baby formula and diapers if you've got an infant. Pet food and pet meds if you've got animals, because those creatures depend entirely on you, and the pet aisle empties out just like every other aisle. Now let's talk about a real first aid kit. And I mean a real one. Not the dusty little plastic box with 3 bent bandages and a single alcohol wipe that expired during a previous decade, which is what most households are quietly calling being prepared. That box is a participation trophy. It is not a first aid kit. A genuinely functional kit contains wound closure strips for holding cuts shut, sterile gauze pads in several sizes, antiseptic solution and wipes, nitrile gloves so you're not getting blood everywhere, a quality tourniquet, elastic bandages, a CPR face shield, a basic splint, burn dressings, a good pair of medical scissors, tweezers, safety pins, and, listen to this part, a printed first aid manual. On paper, because in a real emergency, your internet might be gone, and you do not want to be trying to remember how to treat a serious wound from a half-loaded webpage that won't refresh. But here's the thing that matters even more than the supplies. Take an actual basic first aid course. A real one, with a real instructor. Tons of them are offered free or nearly free through community organizations, workplaces, the Red Cross, and local emergency services. Because no amount of fancy gear replaces the confidence and skill of actually knowing what to do when the minutes are counting down and the nearest hospital is either overwhelmed or completely unreachable. Gear in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use it is just expensive decoration. Be the person who knows. Hold up, quick reminder to hit like and subscribe if you're getting something out of this. Comment below and tell me whether your first aid kit is a real one or the sad little expired plastic box. Be honest, it helps the channel. And I'm curious. Now, onward, let me add a whole category the original skipped entirely. And it's one of the most important ones. Personal hygiene and sanitation. This is deeply unglamorous and absolutely critical. In a crisis where normal sanitation breaks down, disease spreads fast, and historically, it has killed more people in disasters than the disaster itself. More people have died from bad water and poor sanitation after earthquakes and floods than from the events directly. That's not a scare tactic, it's just history. Stock soap, plenty of it. Hand sanitizer. Unscented bleach for disinfecting surfaces and water. Toilet paper, obviously, since we all watched that one disappear in real time not long ago. Feminine hygiene products. Baby wipes, which are useful for everyone, not just babies. When running water for washing up is gone. Heavy-duty trash bags. And critically, a plan for human waste if the toilets stop flushing. Because when the water's off, your toilet is just a porcelain chair that doesn't work. A couple of 5-gallon buckets with tight sealing lids, some heavy-duty bags, and a bag of kitty litter or sawdust to control odor and moisture can be the difference between a manageable situation and a genuine health crisis inside your own home. Nobody likes thinking about this. Think about it anyway. The people who don't are the ones who get sick. Now, power. Batteries are one of those things that feel infinitely abundant right up until they aren't. The moment a major storm gets announced, batteries evaporate off the shelves within hours. Not days. Hours, and yet we run everything off them. Flashlights, radios, blood pressure monitors, hearing aids, all of it. Know exactly which sizes your essential devices need. AA and AA cover the overwhelming majority of household stuff. But check for the oddballs. Your smoke detectors might take 9 volts. Your hearing aids take those little button cells. Keep a dedicated, clearly labeled supply, stored somewhere cool and dry. Check them during those same twice-yearly clock changes. See how that one habit keeps paying off? And for real long-term power resilience, invest in a good set of rechargeable batteries paired with a compact solar charger. The upfront cost is modest, and the payoff is enormous. Here's the logic. When the grid goes down, your stash of disposable batteries is a finite resource that's draining every single day. But a solar setup keeps refilling itself for as long as the sun keeps rising, which, during basically every emergency anyone's ever had, it reliably continues to do. Free energy falling out of the sky. Take it. Let me expand that into something bigger, because it deserves it. A portable power station, sometimes called a solar generator. These have gotten dramatically cheaper and better in recent years, and one the size of a small cooler can keep your phone, your radio, a few lights, a fan, and even a CPAP machine or small medical device running for days. Paired with a folding solar panel, it becomes a genuine renewable lifeline that just keeps going. For anyone in your household who depends on a powered medical device, a CPAP, an oxygen concentrator, refrigerated insulin, this is not optional. It is the difference between fine and a hospital trip you can't make, because the roads are out. Prioritize it accordingly. And if your budget runs to it, a proper standby or portable generator is worth serious thought, especially if you live somewhere with regular outages. Just remember 2 hard rules. Never, ever run a fuel generator indoors or in an attached garage. Because the carbon monoxide will kill you and your whole family silently in your sleep. This happens every single storm season, and it's heartbreaking and completely preventable. And get a carbon monoxide detector, battery-powered, while you're at it. Run generators outside, well away from windows, every time, no exceptions. Now propane deserves its own little moment of appreciation, because it solves problems that gasoline simply cannot. The biggest one, unlike gasoline, propane does not degrade over time. Stored properly, it stays viable for 5 years or more, and some estimates push that figure a whole lot higher. It just sits there, patiently, ready, year after year. It burns clean. It's efficient, and it's versatile in a way few other fuels can match. 2 or 3 standard cylinders, stored in a shaded, ventilated outdoor area, never indoors, never in a sealed garage, and rotated by age, give you a genuine fuel backbone. Pair that propane with a quality camp stove for cooking, an indoor safe propane heater for warmth, and a propane lantern for light, and you've built yourself a comprehensive, long-lasting, off-grid energy solution that needs almost zero maintenance between today and the day you actually need it. That's an incredible return on a pretty small investment. Just make sure any propane heater you use indoors is specifically rated as indoor safe and has an oxygen depletion sensor, and crack a window for ventilation anyway. Respect the fuel, and it'll serve you well. Quick checkpoint, you know the routine. If you're finding this valuable, smash like, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments what your backup power situation looks like right now. It seriously helps the channel reach more people. Let's talk about the one resource you cannot live without. And one more thought before we leave fuel and cooking behind: have more than one way to cook, period. Don't bet everything on a single method. If propane is your main backup, fine, but also know how to cook over a wood fire, and consider a cheap rocket stove that burns small twigs and sticks efficiently, or a solar oven for sunny climates. The reason is simple. Any single fuel source can run out or become unavailable, but the ability to cook over whatever's around makes you genuinely resilient. Redundancy isn't waste, it's the entire philosophy. 1 is none and 2 is 1. As the old saying goes, if you've only got one way to do something critical, you effectively have none, because the moment it fails, you're stuck. Build at least one backup for every essential function: cooking, water, light, heat, and information. That layered redundancy is what separates someone who's truly prepared from someone who just bought a lot of stuff. And then there's water. The one resource where there is no flexibility, no clever workaround, and no substitute whatsoever. Let me put it in the bluntest possible terms. The human body starts failing within about 3 days without water. 3 days. That's the whole window. You can go weeks without food. You get 3 days without water before things go badly wrong. And yet most households have maybe a single day's worth on hand at any given moment, completely dependent on the municipal water system continuing to function flawlessly. And that system? It runs on electrical pumps, chemical treatment processes, and undamaged pipe networks. every single one of which is vulnerable to the exact same disasters that knock out everything else. The storm that kills your power can just as easily take your water with it, or worse, contaminate it so the stuff coming out of your tap is dangerous to drink. The standard guidance is roughly 1 gallon of water per person per day, and that's for drinking and basic hygiene combined. It doesn't leave much slack. Multiply that out by your household and by however many days you want to be covered, and you'll quickly see that bottled water alone is a partial answer at best. It gives you instant access, sure, but it's the very first thing to disappear from stores in any crisis, gone in minutes, and even a big pile of it is finite and heavy and takes up a ton of space. You will eventually run out. The smarter, more sustainable answer is a quality water filtration system. A good portable filter can safely process river water, rainwater, even sketchy stored tap water, and handle anywhere from hundreds to thousands of gallons over its lifespan, at a tiny fraction of what bottled water costs. It turns a questionable water source into a drinkable one, over and over and over. So layer your approach. Keep some bottled water for fast, zero-effort access during the first chaotic hours or days. Stash a few large water storage containers you can fill from the tap the moment you get a warning. Bathtubs work too, in a pinch, for non-drinking water. Then back it all up with a reliable filter for the long haul. And keep a couple of bottles of unscented household bleach or a pack of water purification tablets as a backup to your backup. A few drops of plain bleach disinfects a large container of water when nothing else is available. Boiling works too, if you've got the fuel. Redundancy on water is never ever wasted, because this is the one you genuinely cannot do without. One more water tip the original missed. Know where the water already in your home is hiding. Your water heater holds dozens of gallons of perfectly drinkable water. The tank of your toilet, the clean tank, not the bowl, holds clean water too. Canned vegetables are packed in liquid you can drink. In an emergency, you've got more water around you than you think, if you know where to look. Knowledge weighs nothing, and it's the best survival tool there is. All right, we're past the heavy stuff. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and drop a comment with your biggest water storage worry. I might cover it in a future video. Now let's get into the cheap little overlooked items that quietly make or break you. Security, skills, and the people around you. Before we get to the overlooked little items, let me carve out a whole section the original script ignored completely, and it might be the most important one. Because supplies are only half the equation. The other half is you, your skills, your security, and the people around you. You can have a garage full of rice and still be in serious trouble if you've never thought about these things. Let's start with home security, and I'll be blunt because this topic makes people squeamish. During a serious, extended disruption, the kind where help isn't coming for days, the calculus around security changes. Most emergencies, your neighbors are your greatest asset, and people pull together beautifully. That's the historical norm, and I want to be clear about that. But you still want your home to be a hard target rather than an easy one. The same way you lock your door every night without assuming the worst about anybody. That means basic, sensible stuff. Solid locks on your doors and reinforced strike plates, because most doors fail at the frame, not the lock. Good lighting around your property. Motion-activated solar lights are cheap and a strong deterrent. Knowing your neighbors before anything happens, because a street where people look out for each other is dramatically safer than a street full of strangers. Trimmed landscaping so there aren't easy hiding spots near entry points, and a way to secure valuables and critical supplies out of sight. None of this is paranoid. It's the same logic as wearing a seatbelt. You're not expecting a crash. You're just not betting your life on never having one. On the topic of personal defense, I'm going to keep this measured and general, because this is a topic where local laws vary enormously, and where your own values and comfort level matter a great deal. The honest point is this: have a plan for your family's safety that you've actually thought through, that fits the law where you live, and that you've trained on rather than just imagined. Whatever form that takes for your household. The principle is the same as everything else in this video: competence and a plan beat panic and improvisation every single time. Training and judgment matter infinitely more than any object. Think it through now, calmly, rather than in the middle of a crisis. Hang on, like and subscribe time. If you appreciate that I'm not just throwing fear at you and that I'm keeping this grounded, hit the buttons and let me know in the comments. It genuinely helps the channel grow. Now let's talk about the thing that matters more than any gear: skills. Here's a truth that took me a long time to fully appreciate. Skills weigh nothing, can't be looted, can't expire, and can't run out. Every dollar you spend building a real skill pays off more reliably than almost any dollar spent on gear. Because the skill is with you forever, and it multiplies the value of everything else you own. A water filter is worthless if you don't know how to use it. A first aid kit is just a bag of stuff in the hands of someone who never learned first aid. Seeds are decoration if you can't garden. So invest in skills deliberately. Learn basic first aid and CPR. I said it before, and I'll say it again because it's that important. Learn to cook real meals from raw ingredients, because that turns your storage from a pile of components into actual food. Learn basic home repair, how to shut off and patch a pipe, how to seal a window, how to handle small electrical and plumbing problems. Because when no professional is coming, you're the professional. Learn to start a fire reliably, in bad conditions, without burning your house down. Learn basic navigation with a paper map and compass for when GPS is gone. Learn to garden and to preserve food. Each of these is a free or cheap weekend of learning that pays dividends for the rest of your life, crisis or no crisis. And learn to fix things generally. We live in a throwaway culture where everything gets replaced instead of repaired. But in a disruption, the ability to mend clothes with a basic sewing kit, patch gear, repair tools, and keep things running is enormously valuable. A small sewing kit, a tube of strong adhesive, some spare hardware, and the willingness to figure it out will carry you through 100 small problems that would otherwise stack up into big ones. Now, community, because this is the piece that lone wolf preppers get dangerously wrong. The single greatest survival asset in nearly every real disaster, studied over and over by people who research this for a living, is a connected, cooperative community. People who know and trust their neighbors come through hard times far better than isolated individuals with twice the supplies. You cannot stay awake 24 hours a day. You can't be a doctor and a mechanic and a farmer and a security guard all at once. But a street, a block, a small network of households can cover all of that between them. So the highest leverage prep you can do isn't a purchase at all. It's knowing the people around you. Know which neighbor is a nurse, which one has tools, which one has a garden, which one has elderly folks who'll need checking on. Build those relationships now, in normal times, over a fence and a cup of coffee. So the network already exists when you need it. Generosity and connection are survival strategies, not just nice ideas. The prepper hoarding alone behind a locked door is in a far worse position than the one woven into a community that looks out for its own. Don't build a fortress, build a neighborhood. And think about the vulnerable members of your household and your community specifically. The elderly, the very young, people with disabilities or chronic conditions. Their needs have to be part of your plan from the start, not an afterthought. That might mean extra medication, backup power for medical devices, mobility considerations for evacuation, or simply a system for checking on someone who can't check on themselves. A plan that only works for the healthiest, most able person in the house isn't really a plan. Quick checkpoint before we move on. You know the deal. If this section gave you a new way of thinking about preparedness, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment about which skill you most want to build this year. It seriously helps me reach more people. Now finally, let's get into those cheap overlooked items that quietly make or break you. This last big section covers the supplies and tools most people never even think about until it's far, far too late. These are the quiet, unglamorous, easy to dismiss items that end up making an enormous difference. The stuff that separates people who merely stockpiled from people who actually thought it through. And honestly, this is my favorite section. Because this is where a little cleverness beats a big budget every time. Start with flour. When the convenience foods are gone, and they go fast, and all that's left are raw ingredients, flour suddenly becomes one of the most valuable things in your entire kitchen. But, and this is a big but, only if you actually know how to use it. Flour, water, and a little heat can be turned into bread, flatbreads, tortillas, pancakes, dumplings, biscuits, and a dozen other things that dramatically expand your meal variety and help stretch your limited protein and vegetable stores into something that feels like real food. A sack of flour is dozens of meals waiting to happen, in the hands of someone with the skill to make them. Store it in an airtight container, somewhere cool and dry, because flour attracts pests and moisture if you leave it loose in the bag. Its shelf life isn't as long as rice, nothing is, but rotated regularly, it's more than adequate. Stock it alongside salt, sugar, baking powder, baking soda, and a little yeast, the supporting cast that makes flour actually do something. And here's the crucial part. Learn at least one simple flatbread recipe right now, before you ever need it. Getting comfortable with a new skill takes practice and patience. Getting comfortable with it for the first time during a crisis, while you're stressed and short on resources and your kids are hungry, is a brutally harder ask. Practice on a lazy Sunday. Not on the worst day of your life. Here's one that sounds almost too dumb to mention, and that's precisely why so many people get absolutely caught out by it. The manual can opener. Your pantry can be stacked floor to ceiling with canned goods, a beautiful fortress of food, and a single power outage renders every electric can opener in your kitchen completely, uselessly dead. All that food, sealed in metal, mocking you. So keep at least 2 quality manual can openers, one in your main kitchen, one tucked into your emergency kit. And buy decent ones, not the cheapest piece of junk on the shelf, because a can opener that breaks or slips its gears mid-can is genuinely worse than useless when you're already stressed. Test them once in a while. It's a 30-second check that costs you nothing and could matter enormously. There's a special kind of frustration reserved for the person staring at 100 cans of food they cannot open. Do not be that person. Let me cluster a bunch of cheap critical tools here, because the original list left a pile of obvious ones on the table. A good fixed blade knife and a way to keep it sharp. A knife does 100 jobs, and a dull one is both useless and dangerous. A solid multi-tool, which puts pliers, blades, and screwdrivers in your pocket. A roll of paracord, which is absurdly strong for its size and handles everything from rigging a shelter to replacing a busted bootlace. A hatchet or small axe for processing firewood. A pry bar, which is shockingly useful for forcing a stuck door, lifting debris, or shutting off utilities. And an adjustable wrench, specifically sized for your gas shutoff valve, because if you ever smell gas, you need to be able to kill it fast. And fumbling for the right tool while gas fills your house is not the moment to go shopping. Know where your shutoffs are, gas, water, electrical, and have the tools to operate them staged right there. Most people have no idea where these are. Be the exception. Now lighting, because this is bigger than it sounds. Good lighting beyond candles changes everything. Headlamps especially. Get one for every person in the house, because a headlamp keeps both your hands free while you work, which candles absolutely do not. An open flame in a disrupted, possibly gas-leaking environment is its own serious hazard anyway. Add some battery or solar lanterns for lighting a room, and a couple of quality flashlights. And glow sticks are cheap, foolproof, kid-safe, and they don't need batteries or pose a fire risk. Great for handing to children or marking a path. Cheap, and a total game-changer when the lights go out. Hang on. Like and subscribe time. If these overlooked items are giving you ideas, hit the buttons and comment with the one item on this list you already owned and forgot you had. It happens to everybody. It helps the channel a ton. Now back to it. Fire and warmth deserve their own moment, because the original barely touched it. If the power's out in winter, cold can kill you just as dead as anything else, and quietly. Stock multiple ways to make fire: waterproof matches, several lighters, and a ferro rod that throws sparks even when wet. Keep some fire starter material, like cotton balls smeared in petroleum jelly, which catch instantly and burn long enough to get tinder going. For warmth, layer your options. Wool blankets, which insulate even when damp, emergency Mylar space blankets that fold down to nothing and reflect your body heat back at you. Good cold weather sleeping bags, and proper warm clothing. Hats, gloves, thermal layers, wool socks. Your body loses an enormous amount of heat through your head and hands. In a heat emergency, flip it. You'll want battery fans, light-colored loose clothing, and ways to stay hydrated and shaded. Temperature extremes are silent killers, and people consistently underestimate them. Don't. Now, seeds and basic gardening. Let's be completely honest with each other here. This one is not going to save you in an immediate crisis. A packet of seeds does nothing for you next Tuesday. But as a long-game hedge against sustained, grinding food insecurity, building even a small home garden is one of the highest value things you can put your time into right now. Look around. Rising agricultural input costs, climate pressures, trade disruptions. These are already squeezing the global food supply in measurable ways, and that pressure is not letting up. Even a modest garden gives you fresh vegetables, herbs, and nutrients that are honestly difficult to replicate from shelf-stable food alone, especially over a long stretch of time. There's only so long anyone wants to live out of cans before their body and their spirit start begging for something fresh and green. When you pick seeds, prioritize open-pollinated or heirloom varieties. Here's why that matters. Commercial hybrid seeds are typically engineered for a single season. Save them, replant them, and you get a disappointing mess or nothing at all. Heirloom seeds, by contrast, can be saved from your own harvest and replanted year after year. That gives you a renewable, self-sustaining food source that doesn't depend on any supply chain at all. You become the supply chain. Store them dry and cool, rotate every few years, and critically, grow what your household will actually eat. A garden full of vegetables nobody likes is just a sad hobby. Start with the easy, forgiving stuff. Tomatoes, beans, squash, leafy greens, herbs. Get a win under your belt and build from there. Start a small plot this season. Learn the process. Build a skill while the stakes are low, because the time to get competent at anything is before you have to depend on it. And let me bolt on a related skill, the original ignored, food preservation. Learning to can, dehydrate, ferment, or pickle means a good harvest or a bulk meat sale doesn't go to waste. It becomes shelf-stable storage you made yourself. A basic dehydrator or a water bath canner and a bit of know-how turns surplus into security. Knowing how to keep food without refrigeration is one of the most genuinely powerful skills you can build. And it's how every generation before the modern fridge got through the winter. Next up, staying informed. And this one is underestimated almost universally, which is wild when you think about how much it actually matters. During a major emergency, cell networks get overloaded and can fail completely. Internet access vanishes, and suddenly the only way to know what is actually happening, whether you need to evacuate, where emergency services are operating, how long the disruption is expected to drag on, where it's safe and where it isn't, comes down to a radio signal. Information becomes its own kind of survival resource, because panic feeds on not knowing, and good decisions depend on good information. A hand crank or battery-powered radio that picks up AM, FM, and NOAA weather bands gives you real-time emergency broadcasts and weather alerts completely independent of the power grid and the cell towers. Crank it, and it works whether or not anything else does. A lot of models throw in a built-in USB charging port, and a flashlight too, which adds real utility for a genuinely modest price. It's a small purchase with completely disproportionate value in exactly the moments you need information most. Buy one. Test it. Know how it works before the day you're relying on it. And here's a related point worth making. Have a family communication plan. Pick an out-of-area contact everyone can check in with, since local lines may be jammed, but a call to another region might get through. Agree on a meeting spot in case you're separated and phones are down. Make sure everyone, including the kids, knows the plan. A text message often gets through when a voice call won't, so keep that in your back pocket. Communication is part of preparedness, and it costs nothing but a conversation. Quick break, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments if you've got an emergency radio yet, and which kind. It genuinely helps more people stumble onto this stuff. Almost done, a few more, and they're important ones. Now, duct tape and heavy-duty plastic sheeting. This humble combo is the unsung hero of damage control, and I'd argue it's underrated by basically everyone. Because not every emergency is about running out of food or fuel. Sometimes a crisis means a burst pipe flooding your floor, a window shattered by storm debris, a chunk of roof letting water pour in, or a structural gap that needs sealing right now. The ability to act fast on physical damage, to buy yourself hours or days before a professional can possibly get to you, can be the whole difference between a manageable inconvenience and a serious compounding, expensive nightmare. A taped-up tarp over a hole in the roof tonight saves the entire ceiling, and maybe the whole room. Tomorrow, duct tape and plastic sheeting are cheap, compact, and useful in about 1,000 ways beyond the obvious. Add a few good tarps and some bungee cords and rope to that kit while you're at it. They belong in every single emergency kit, no exceptions. Let me add a couple more safety items that round this out. A fire extinguisher, actually. More than one. One for the kitchen and one near where you'd use heat or fuel. House fires don't take a break during a wider crisis, and the fire department may be completely overwhelmed or simply unable to reach you. A small fire you can put out yourself in 30 seconds is a non-event. The same fire 5 minutes later is your whole house. Know how to use it before you need it. Pull, aim, squeeze, sweep, work gloves and sturdy boots for everyone. Because disasters turn the world into a minefield of broken glass, splintered wood, and twisted metal. And a deep hand or foot wound when there's no hospital available is a genuine threat that's entirely avoidable with the right gear on. And a basic dust mask or respirator, because smoke, dust, mold, and debris in the air after a disaster are real respiratory hazards. One more category the original skipped entirely and shouldn't have: important documents and a small emergency fund of information. Keep copies of your critical documents, IDs, insurance policies, medical records, property deeds, prescriptions in a waterproof, fireproof container, and a digital backup on an encrypted drive. If you ever have to evacuate fast or your home is damaged, these are the things that are an absolute nightmare to replace, and that you'll desperately need to rebuild your life afterward. Throw in some cash, a list of emergency contacts on paper, and maybe a printed map of your area, because GPS goes down with everything else. This stuff weighs almost nothing and saves you immeasurable grief. And finally, physical cash. This one feels almost quaint in a world where half of us haven't held a paper bill in months. We tap, we swipe, we send money with our thumbs. But every single piece of that, every card reader, every ATM, every payment app, depends on functioning power, internet connectivity, and secure networks. Every one of those is vulnerable to the same disruptions we've been talking about this whole video. When those systems go offline, and in an extended emergency they will go offline, the only transaction method left standing is physical currency. Cash doesn't need a signal. Cash doesn't need power. Cash works in a blackout, and the person holding it can buy fuel, food, and essentials while everyone else is staring helplessly at a dead card reader, unable to buy anything at all. So keep a modest, secure stash of bills at home, in low denominations, 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s. The low denominations matter, because if the registers are down, nobody's making change for your 50 or your 100, and you don't want to overpay 4 times the real price just because it's all you've got in your pocket. Keep it somewhere secure but accessible, and stash a smaller amount in your vehicle or your go bag too. Now, to be crystal clear, this is not your emergency fund, and it's definitely not your life savings sitting in a shoebox under the bed. This is a practical buffer. Enough to cover fuel, food, or essentials during the hours or days when the digital economy simply isn't open for business. And right alongside the cash, let me mention the go bag itself, because it ties this whole thing together. A go bag is a single-packed backpack, ready by the door, that has the essentials to get you through 72 hours if you have to leave your home immediately. Fire, flood, gas leak, whatever. Water, some food, a first aid kit, a flashlight, a radio, cash, copies of documents, basic toiletries, a change of clothes, and any critical medications. The whole point is that when you have 2 minutes to get out, you grab one bag and you go, instead of running around your house in a panic, forgetting half of what matters. Pack one for each person. It's the single highest leverage hour of preparation you can do. How to actually start without going broke? Let me address the thing that stops most people before they even begin. Because it's the real obstacle, and nobody talks about it honestly. People watch a video like this, feel a jolt of motivation, look at the size of the full list, do some quick mental math, get overwhelmed, and then do absolutely nothing. The list feels too big and too expensive, so the brain just shuts the whole project down. I've seen it 100 times. So let me kill that obstacle right now. You do not buy all of this at once. You never were supposed to. The entire approach is incremental, and the math is gentler than you think. Add $10 or $20 of preparedness to your normal grocery and hardware shopping each week, an amount you genuinely won't feel, and within a few months, you'll have a foundation that most households can only dream of. A bag of rice this week, a case of water and some batteries next week, a first aid restock the week after, a water filter the week after that. None of those individual purchases hurts. Stacked over a season, they're transformative. Here's the order I'd suggest if you're starting from zero and want the most safety for the least money, in roughly this priority. First, water, storage, and a filter, because it's the thing you die from fastest and the cheapest to fix. Second, a couple weeks of food built on rice, beans, oats, and canned protein, because hunger is the next pressure. Third, light and power, flashlights, headlamps, batteries, a hand crank radio. Fourth, a real first aid kit and your medications. Fifth, sanitation and hygiene supplies. Sixth, fuel, heat and cooking, propane, a camp stove, warmth. Seventh, the tools, cash, documents, and go bag that, tie it all together. Work down that list at whatever pace your budget allows. And at every single step, you're meaningfully more prepared than you were the week before. There's no point where you're not done yet in a way that leaves you exposed. Every brick you lay makes the wall taller. And shop smart, because preparedness rewards patience. Buy in bulk when the price is right. Watch for sales and stock up then. Hit warehouse stores, restaurant supply shops, and ethnic grocery stores where staples like rice, beans, and oil come in big, cheap bags. Buy used or refurbished for the bigger ticket gear like power stations when it makes sense. The person who builds their preparedness slowly and on sale spends a fraction of what the panic buyer spends grabbing whatever's left at full price the day before a storm. Time is your ally here. Use it. The whole advantage of starting early is that early is cheap and late is expensive. That's true of the prices, and it's true of everything else. One more mindset point, and it's a big one. Build for the likely, not just the dramatic. People love to prep for the cinematic end-of-the-world scenario, but the disruptions that actually hit normal families are far more mundane and far more common. A job loss, a bad storm, a power outage that lasts a few days, a burst pipe in winter, a regional supply shortage, getting sick and not being able to shop for a week. A well-stocked pantry and a bit of cash quietly carry you through all of those ordinary emergencies that are statistically far more likely than any apocalypse. Prepare for the Tuesday problem, not just the movie. The Tuesday problem is the one you'll almost certainly actually face. And the beautiful thing is that preparing for it covers most of the bigger stuff anyway. Quick break: if this practical, no overwhelm approach is landing for you, hit like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments where you're starting first. It honestly helps the channel more than you'd think. And I love seeing people actually take the first step. Almost done, let me bring this all home. Here's the bigger picture I want you to walk away with, because it's the part that actually matters more than any single item on this list. None of these things demand some dramatic overhaul of your life or a hit to your budget that you'll genuinely feel. Not one. Every single thing we covered can be built up gradually, quietly, over time, without anybody thinking you've gone off the deep end. A little extra rice on this week's grocery run. A bag of beans. One more can of tuna than you needed. A bottle of fuel stabilizer grabbed on a hardware store trip you were already making. A pack of batteries here. A manual can opener there. A headlamp the next week. It adds up faster than you'd think, and you barely notice the cost when it's spread out across normal shopping trips like that. The whole game is steady, proactive action, taken before the moment of need ever arrives. Because once that moment arrives, the window slams shut, and it slams shut fast and hard. So here's your homework, and I mean it. Go review your household against every category we covered. Fuel in a half-full tank. Rice and beans. Canned protein. Oil. Salt. Honey. Sugar. The long-life pantry staples. Medications and vitamins. A real first aid kit. Hygiene and sanitation. Batteries and a power station. Propane. Water and a filter. Flour and baking basics. Can openers, knives and tools. Fire and warmth. Lighting, seeds, and the skill to use them. A radio and a comms plan. Duct tape, tarps, and sheeting. A fire extinguisher, gloves, and a dust mask. Documents in a waterproof box. Cash, and a packed go bag by the door. Find the gaps. You'll have some, everybody does, even people who've been at this for years. Then fill them one at a time. No panic. No giant single shopping spree that empties your account. Just one gap, closed at a time, week by week. And do not stop at buying. Buying is the easy half. Teach your family where everything is and how to use it, because supplies that nobody can find or operate in a crisis aren't supplies. They're just clutter taking up space. Practice the basics. Cook a full meal from raw ingredients with the power switched off and see what you're missing. Test your emergency radio and learn the bands. Actually assemble your water filter once in daylight, so you're not reading the instructions for the first time in the dark while you're scared. Run the manual can opener. Light the headlamps. Find your gas shutoff. Make it real, not theoretical, because theoretical preparedness evaporates the instant real stress hits. Because preparedness isn't a destination you arrive at and then you're finished. There's no finish line, no certificate, no moment where you get to dust off your hands and call it done. It's a habit you build brick by brick and then keep maintained over the years. And the honest truth is, the earlier you start, the calmer you'll be when it actually matters, and the less it'll cost you. In money, and in stress, and in fear, to get there. Let's not kid ourselves about the world we're living in. It is not getting simpler. Supply chains, energy systems, geopolitical stability, weather patterns. They're all sitting under pressures that aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And pretending otherwise doesn't make anyone safer. But here's the genuinely empowering part. The part I want to leave you with. With a little foresight, some practical actions spread out over a few months, and the right supplies quietly tucked away in place, you put your household squarely into that calm, prepared minority. The people who ride out disruptions as manageable inconveniences instead of full-blown crises. The ones with their feet up while everyone else is stuck in the line, scrambling, hoping there's something left. That's exactly what Essential Pantry exists to help you build. Not fear, not paranoia, not a bunker. Just quiet, steady, unbothered readiness that lets you sleep well at night no matter what the news is doing. Let me leave you with one last reframe, because I think it's the thing that actually changes behavior. Stop thinking about preparedness as preparing for the worst day of your life, because that framing is heavy and grim and it makes people freeze. Start thinking about it as buying yourself peace of mind every single day between now and whenever something happens. The reward isn't only the dramatic moment when the supplies save you. The reward is the calm you carry around with you in the meantime. The quiet confidence of knowing that if the power goes out, if you lose your income for a month, if a storm rolls in, if the shelves empty, you and the people you love are going to be okay. That confidence is worth something every single day, not just on the bad ones. Most people walk around with a low background hum of vulnerability they're not even conscious of. You get to trade that for the steadiness of having handled it. That's a genuinely better way to live, crisis or no crisis. And remember that this is a journey you take a step at a time, not a test you pass or fail. You're not behind. You're not too late. Wherever you're starting from today is fine. The only thing that matters is that you start, and that you keep going at a pace you can sustain. The person who buys one bag of rice this week and keeps showing up beats the person who buys a mountain of gear in a panic and then never thinks about it again. Consistency wins. It always wins. If this video gave you something useful today, do me that favor one last time. Leave a like, because it genuinely makes a real difference in helping this content reach more people who need to hear it. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because there is a lot more where this came from, and I've got deep dives planned on a bunch of these individual topics. Drop a comment and tell me what you're stocking up on first after watching this. I read them, and your answer might help someone else who's scrolling through figure out their own first step. Share this with someone you care about, because the best preparedness is a prepared community, and the people in your life being ready makes you safer too. And I'll see you in the next one. Stay calm, stay ready, and stay ahead of the crowd.